All right, welcome to the Witness Business Podcast. Super excited for today's episode. We have Daniel Maddry on the show with us today. Daniel, welcome to the Witness Business Podcast.
Hey, what's up, guys? How you doing?
Great. We're happy to have you. So I encountered Daniel through a fun little card game called Cards Christians Like. For those who don't know what that is, it's sort of a Cards Against Humanity spinoff. And I love it. I think I was a pre-order. I found it through an Instagram page that I follow, so like a Christian meme page, and they said, "Hey, would you be interested in this game?" And I said, "Heck yeah!" So, but I want to hear from you, Daniel. Just give us a quick rundown. First of all, introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you do? And then we'll kind of dig into the details of like, how did you come up with this idea? And I know you've got lots of products out there. So how did you come up with these ideas? And let's dig into, how they developed into what they are today.
Yeah, well, guys, first off, thanks so much for having me today. I'm pumped to be on the Witness Business Podcast. My name is Daniel Maddry. I'm 35 years old. I've only been in the entrepreneurial vein for about 6 years now, and it has been the most fun. Adventure journey, all of the above. So, my background, I was actually a youth and young adults pastor for about 10 years. I ended up at the end of my 20s, I went and spent, call it a gap year in Stockholm, Sweden. And while I was there, I was like, you know what am I going to do with all this free time? Like, I can't have a job. You know what I mean? Like, I can't work illegally. I can't do anything like that. I was like, how am I going to invest my time? And so I said this, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to learn how to do web design, and I'm going to learn how to write. And I feel like those two skills, whatever is beyond where I'm at right now, those two skills will probably serve me well in what I'm doing. So, I came back from Sweden, and I'm just in like this wondering period. And so I start dabbling in this website. And this is kind of like the precursor to, how our paths crossed through Cards Christians Like. But I decided, like, you know what, if the only thing I'm good at, is youth ministry, that's the only thing I've done with my life, maybe I could help youth pastors. I start a website. We've got a blog. We've got all these things going. I'm trying desperately to monetize it. It's not going very well. The first year is just, $0 in the bank account. I'm still living out of this nonprofit that, I fundraised money for several years back. And in the midst of launching what I feel like is my passion project, that I feel like is, call it my calling. In the midst of that, I have this idea for Cards Christians Like. And, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, the idea hit my mind, and I was like, oh, I feel accountable to this. Like, I feel like I have to like do something with this. And this is a very, very funny sidebar, but whenever I was living in Austin, Texas at the time, I was unmarried. Now I'm married to our marketing director. Don't tell our board of directors. I'm just joking. It's solo owned. I married the most incredible woman, and she happens to be great at marketing. So, we make a great team together. But whenever I was like moving around, I finally had to part with my chair. And whenever I had the Facebook listing up, I was like, hey, this is like a great brown leather chair, like definitely used. And I had $1 million idea in it. And so that was like my selling point. Like, I had an idea that changed my life in this chair. And like within an hour, someone's like, y'all take that chair. Like, I need a chair like that in my life. So, anyways, that's kind of how it started. Is I had that idea for a card game in this chair, and it was challenging because, how do you start a card game? Like, how do you do that? How do you write the game? How do you manufacture? How do you distribute? How much does that cost? How much does a card game cost these days? So that was kind of the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey, is while I was trying to start what I felt like was my passion business, I started this side project that ended up like grossly surpassing, what it was I set out to do.
So what's the going rate for a thinking chair like that?
But I tell you what, back in 2020, whenever I sold it, it was $100.
Whew.
So yeah, had I known it was going to go that fast, I would have raised the price.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's also an element of this where every married man will understand this, and every single guy will not get this at all. But it's just the idea that there's something that you have, and it is sentimental to you, and it doesn't match any of the color scheme or anything that your wife has said about. You don't understand what she's doing. You just know it needs to be gone. You don't know why. And then one day it's gone, and that's all you need to know.
And it's a painful loss. Yeah, we're really glad that this chair pays the mortgage, but we need to get rid of it because it's ruining our vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever that vibe is.
So let's dig in a little bit. You said a lot of good things in there, and I feel that you talk about, I have this idea for a card game. What do I even do with this idea? Like, I have no idea. I've never done anything like this. I don't know how to manufacture it. I don't know who to call. So what did you do?
Right. Well, the funny thing is, depending on your background, many people like, hey, let me call my dad. You know what? He started a few businesses. He knows how to do X, Y, and Z. Let me, if it's something common, let me go to the internet. Maybe we can find some information there. But for me, my dad was a peach farmer. He was farming peaches. Like, whenever my fiddle leaf is dying, I can call him, but short of that, he's not going to have much business insight that he can really pass along to me. And so, the first thing that I thought I needed to do was just understand the game. So before I get concerned with how am I going to manufacture, how am I going to produce, how am I going to raise funds, how am I going to do any of this, let me just make sure that I actually know how this game works and am I good at writing games? Because it's not like, I've got a few hobbies and passions. I like to read. We ride horseback. I write games. Said no one. No one does that. And so, I took the original. You said it was kind of a riff off of Cards Against Humanity. You nailed it. That's exactly what it is. And so I bought, a copy of Cards Against Humanity, and, I was aware how it worked. I had played it before, and then my soul drenched with shame with all of the horrible...
I can't tell you how many times I've played Cards Against Humanity. At the end, you're like, man, all these things I laughed at that I feel I probably shouldn't have laughed at that.
Yeah, that's cool. Now that I've splintered my soul into 15 pieces, hopefully I sleep well tonight.
Exactly.
I've won, but at what cost?
Yeah, exactly. So, Cards Against Humanity could tell you, just draw a black card. That would tell you the cost. By the way, this is complete ahead on TikTok. Like, one day I logged into our Shopify to see, how our sales going today, all this stuff. And we had like massively spiked. Like, I was like, whoa, where is all this money coming from? Like, something is happening right now. And I couldn't figure out what it was. There was this girl on TikTok who was mixing together Cards Against Humanity prompts with Cards Christians Like responses. And it was terribly hilarious. And it became, this thing became her life brand. She ended up doing 8 parts, because she realized I can get a lot of traction with this. But she didn't know how much money we were making on the back end. So we appreciate you for that. We, we tip our hats to you, and
everybody wins.
Yeah. So let me get back to it. So the first thing that we did is I said, how does the game work? And how do the prompts work? What is the grammatical structure of these cards? Whenever you have responses, how long are they? What's the subject matter? Well, not really the subject matter, but are these nouns? Are these verbs? Are they full sentences? Are they incomplete? Are they phrases? Are we working with prepositions here? What are we doing? So I literally just took the cards and I just tried to reverse engineer, like, what are the fundamentals of how this game is written. And from there, I got a spreadsheet out, and I started making notes of, like, okay, you've got this many one word responses, this many two, this many, and I just started gathering all of this data that I could come up with, and figured, like, okay, what's the cadence of this game? From that point on, it became a matter of, okay, I understand how the game is written, but what do I do with the content? So, I realized that after, writing hundreds of cards with one of my buddies, I didn't do this by myself, but one of my close friends who we still work together today, he was this go-to. By the way, this is good business advice. Find a guy who just loves all of your ideas, and stick and do whatever you have to do to stick with him, for him to, do whatever you need to do to maintain that friendship, and to stay close, and to be connected and have fun, because it will serve you very well. So this guy, who was part of another project I was working on, like I said earlier, jumps on, and he's like, "Oh, I would love to write. I would love to do this." So we go to the dungeon, and we're like on this shared spreadsheet. It's the beginning of COVID, so we're not doing anything, and we're just trying to write this game. And we come up with this kind of a quadrant to grade cards. And it was, how relevant is this card? And then how playable is this card? Because we found out that something could be highly relevant, but not playable, and it doesn't work in the game. Or something could be highly playable, but not relevant, and it's not going to be funny. So what we would do is we would kind of take these cards and match them into this filter of, is this relatable? Is this playable? This is a card that will fit into the game and make people laugh. And so through a matter of months, we came up with, it's 100 prompts, and it's 500 responses. And we came up with a game that we thought, this is funny. But, there are times whenever you're in an echo chamber, and we're like, is this really funny, or are we like stupid? Like, are we just like, have we been in the dungeon too long? We just not, do we not know what fresh air, smells like? And so we thought it was good. We printed off a smaller copy, and, we put it in like this little jewel case, and, we tried to play with some friends, and we would write down feedback, and, we were doing the best job that we could. But, at the end of the day, we just had to trial and error, and we felt like we'd come up with a good product. From there, this was pretty interesting, because this is where we had no experience. Anyone can kind of write content. You know what I mean? Whether you're good at it or not, you can still do it. It's like anyone can film a video. You might not be funny. You might not be smart. You might not be good looking, but you can get in front of a camera and talk. It's not saying you're going to go anywhere, but you can produce content. The next thing that we did was the kind of the biggest step in the direction of, wow, we mean business. And it's, how do we manufacture these cards? So the first thing that I started doing is I started listening or reading any publication I could find with the creators of Cards Against Humanity. So I went back to their original Kickstarter page, and I'm reading about their journey, where they accidentally raised, more money than they thought they could, and they're no longer printing it at Terry's down the street, and they've got to find a manufacturer, and they're doing this, and the delivery date got pushed back, and they sold out before they did. So I'm reading their story. There was a game creator podcast that they had been a part of in 2012. I think it was the very first podcast on the internet. So the quality's horrible. The interviewers are horrible. Everything about it is bad. No one, the intelligence was not there yet. And I just gathered as much information that I could about, how did Cards Against Humanity do this? How did they print their game? And at some point, they mentioned their manufacturer, with which hindsight, it's on the back of their box. I could have just looked at their box, but I that's too obvious. We need to dig deep. If I don't have a magnifying glass or whatever, I'm not doing enough research. So I reach out to their manufacturer, and I'm like, hey, hi guys. I've got a game. It's kind of like Cards Against Humanity. And I was just wondering, how much is it to print if I wanted like 100 copies of the game? Like that was my ask. Like I want 100 copies. What is that? How much money do you need from me? You know? And they respond to me. They're like, well, actually the minimum order value is, or the minimum order number is 500. So we're going to have to, figure out how much it is to do 500 copies of this game. Also, you probably need to talk to Cards Against Humanity's legal team just to make sure, you don't get sued or anything. So I reach out to legal, and this is what I said, guys, this is insane. I reach out to them and I was like, hey guys, I was super nice. I was like, love your game. Wanted to create a more family friendly version. I thought that's pretty non-competitive. All this stuff. Is there anything I need to look out for? Would never want to cross any legal bounds, hugs and kisses. I was just very nice about it. And they wrote me back and their response was super chill. They're like, what's up, bro? Yeah, people want to do that all the time. This was from legal at cardsagainsthumanity.com. They're like, yeah, I mean, typically if people want to, riff off our game, you can't use our colors, you can't use our fonts, you can't do cards against blank or blank against humanity. You can't use our tagline. The shape of your box needs to be, they kind of go through like some of these trade dress issues. And I was like, okay, cool. I was like, that's awesome. And so, we go through the manufacturer. The manufacturer tells us it's going to cost $12,500. And I was like, dang. See, the way my bank account is set up, I don't have that much money. And so we're going to have to fundraise this. And so our original Kickstarter goal was $12,500. And this is truly what I thought. I think to raise that amount of money, we had to sell maybe 100 copies of the game.
Remind me what you were selling it for, because if my math is right, that's $25 a box. So I thought I only bought it for like $30 or something like that. So you had to have some slim profit margins in the beginning.
Oh, see, we weren't even trying to make profit. So I want to say, is it 12,500? Here, I've got my calculator divided by 25. Now that's 500. This is what I thought. I don't know what I was thinking, but I was like, we were pre-selling them for $25. And I was like, I'm going to sell, as many of these as I can and try to hit this $12,500 goal. I'm going to mail out all the original people who backed the game. I'm going to stick the other 200 games in my closet, and I'm going to give them away to my friends and family as party favors and Christmas presents. Like that was my ultimate goal for the game. I'm going to do one run. I'm going to take the leftovers, give them to anyone who will take them, maybe donate them one day whenever they collected dust in my closet. So we started our Kickstarter, and on day one, we raised $15,000. And I was like, whoa. I was like, I did not expect this. Like when we launched the campaign, it's like, Daniel backed the campaign. I was like, wonder who that is. You know what I mean? And then it's like, my sister backed the campaign. I was like, thanks, and then it's like, we started seeing some of like our friends and family back the campaign. And then I remember the first time a name came across the back end. We're like, who's that? Do you know them? I don't know who they are. And then it kept rolling in. And it's like we would literally hit refresh on the page and it was jumping by like hundreds of dollars at a time. And we were like, what are we doing right now? We are about to steal all of this money. We have no idea what we're doing. And so by the end of the campaign, we had raised $186,000.
Man.
Wow.
This is
the Bernie Madoff of card games.
Exactly. See ya. Love you. Hope you're doing well.
Thanks.
I mean,
so I don't want to get too sidetracked because I want you to keep going. But you said your wife is like a marketer. So were you marketing this at all? Were you like running Facebook ads or anything? Or were you just like, Here, hey, friends and family, here it is, and let's see where this goes.
So the first 5 days of the campaign, we had no marketing. So by that time, we'd probably raised $30,000 or so. And so, ironically enough, at the time, my roommate worked for an ad agency in Austin. And so he was kind of new to Facebook ads, and we would like dabble in these little projects together. And he was like, "Hey, I think I can run ads to your Kickstarter." And I was like, "Let's try it. We might as well do it." And so we did. We started running ads. And then that's when I was like, "Hey, let me reach out to the meme community and see if we can, work some sort of deal," because we had this 600 card game. But then I was like, well, Cards Against Humanity has expansion packs. I was like, so these big meme accounts, don't really have a reason to trust me. But maybe if I did business with them and gave them a kickback, they would help us promote the game. So we did a collaboration with Epic Christian Memes, which was really the driver of a lot of the growth,
Which is where I found you.
Come on,
if you're curious.
Well, I'm so glad that you did. I love now Epic and we have a great friendship, and we work to. Ironically enough, I told you I had my side project, my passion project, and Cards was my side project. Well, our passion project, whenever we were trying to get it off the ground, I was like, hey, I don't have any money for marketing, but what if we made memes about youth ministry? And so now our meme account has like 140,000 followers. But it was funny because that was kind of like that creative. I have no idea how to draw attention to what I'm doing right now. I also kind of had the emotional awareness to say, hey, probably youth pastors aren't going to come to me for this immense, leadership advice. They'll probably just follow someone who's already like proven themselves. So what if I could just make them laugh? You know what I mean? So I guess what we can see now is my entire livelihood has been like, how can I make money helping people have fun and laugh? And, if I can do that for a living, then that would be incredible. But anyway, so we did kind of have some marketing after we got the initial ball rolling, but we didn't have a huge platform to launch from. In fact, we've done 3 Kickstarters since then for our follow-up games, Cast the First Stone, Holy Guacamole, and Discernment. And none of them have come close to what we did with Cards Christians Like. So I really feel like whenever it comes to ideas, I feel like we caught lightning in a bottle. It was like a cultural moment where COVID had us all locked in, and Christian games had not been pioneered yet, not really in an excellent way. Or if there was Christian humor, it really aired on the side of cheesy rather than intelligent and relevant. And so I really feel like we just got lucky at hitting that first wave of something that had not really been explored in Christian culture at the time.
So kind of on that note, you're kind of maybe touching on the idea of not having insular or insulated humor, where it's like so nuanced and niche, it's almost kind of like an inside joke.
Right.
So what was it like for you to kind of try and expand maybe a more nuanced humor to a wider audience? How did you kind of strike that balance?
Well, I mean, I heard it one time whenever I first started getting into marketing and business. I was reading about the minimum viable product. I want to say it was Eric Ries's the lean startup, and they say if you try to catch fish with a net, you might not catch anything. But if you try to, catch fish with a harpoon, you'll for sure catch one. And so the idea with marketing was not that I want to create something for everyone, but that I want to create something that is really dialed in for one specific targeted person. And so, or a target audience, we would say. And so, what we did is we created a very targeted game, And then we put it out into the world and said, who all does this resound with? And it turns out that there were many people in Christian circles who were like, wait, that's exactly what I've been looking for. Like, I didn't know that I wouldn't have said it, but now that I've seen it, I know that that's something that resounds with me. So I wouldn't say there was something we had to strive for. We just created the exact product that we wanted as consumers and said, does this matter to anyone else?
Right. You weren't trying to reach the masses. You were reaching a specific group of people. And I was just going to say, like, we have friends over all the time. And when we go to like pull out a board game, it's rare I pull out Cards Christians Like. It has to be the right group, you know,
Right.
Because when my Christian friends come over, that's the first game we pull out. But it has to be that group that, like, you know, they've grown up in the Christian community. They know maybe who all the mega pastors are, the mega church pastors, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that's probably what made you successful is, you know, this group of people thinks it's hilarious because
Right.
of how they've been, you know, how they've grown up. The masses maybe don't get it, but that's kind of the point.
It's like we all grew up the same. We all had similar, you know, parents making us do certain things, making us watch certain things, constantly saying certain phrases. And whenever you strike that chord where someone is like, that is me, that is me, that is like the ultimate connection. And we wrote this game by staring in the mirror. I mean, we would literally, as we were writing, we would be sitting in church services and we would text each other and someone's like, I see that hand. You know what I mean? Like something that you've heard a pastor say before or something that you noticed about the audience or whatever. And we would just write those down. And it turned out that there was a large tribe of people that were like, yes, no, I know exactly what you're talking about. And so I think that really contributed to the success of our game. One of the other things that I was going to say, I didn't have space to tell it earlier in my story, but whenever I emailed Cards Against Humanity and I said, hey, I've got more of a friendly, family friendly version of our game, I don't think it would be competitive. 3 days after I sent that email, they registered the domain Cards Against Humanity Family Edition. If you've seen the white box with the black letters that says family on it, and it's the kids version essentially of Cards Against Humanity, that domain, I went back and looked at the domain records. It was registered 3 days after I sent that email. So while I cannot, with confidence say they made that in response to the email that I sent, what I can say is that timeline was very close.
Correlation.
Very coincidental.
Yeah, correlation doesn't equal causation, but it doesn't rule it out.
Yeah, exactly. I could build a pretty strong case as to why you didn't maybe randomly think of that in the next 3 days, but
no, they said this guy's onto something.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? And I think that their family edition has done quite well. I've seen it in many retail stores, and you know.
But you had something that they don't have, and that's the knowledge of the Christian community and the stereotypes and things like that. So yeah, you can make a family friendly version, but do you have the expertise in the specific area that you went after? Yeah,
we're still definitely set apart, no pun intended. That would be a Christian phrase. If you're not a Christian, it's okay. You're just not set apart. It doesn't matter. It's like we're still equals. It's just different. It's just you're not chosen by God. I'm joking. I'm not getting into any theological.
You're just not one of us.
Right? It's fine. It doesn't matter, but it could one day. You know.
So I gotta know, like, you're talking about some of the humor that you drummed up was like staring yourself in the mirror. What was the first memorable one, or the one that really sticks with you that you wrote it and you're like, this is a zinger, like this one is.
You're like, I'm proud of that.
Goodness, that's such a difficult question. Let me backtrack a little bit. Not a response, not like one of those cards. But we wrote a prompt that whenever we wrote it, we were like, oh my goodness, like this literally fits every situation ever. And it was, if blank is wrong, then I don't want to be right. And so you could literally, we found you can plug every card into our game and that works and it's funny. Another one that we feel like, once again, another prompt where it's like, wait, maybe not, this is me. Maybe this is me. But this is very intelligently written was, scholars now agree that Paul's thorn in the flesh was actually blank. Because in the Christian circles, you would be like, oh, this is just my thorn in the flesh. This is just my lot in life. Like, this is just what I have to bear. This is whatever. And everyone, not everyone, but many Christians have correlated whatever pain they're walking through is like the thorn in their flesh. And so, to be able to sarcastically add some validity to this thought that so many have had, it's like, oh no, we do see that, voting Democrat is the thorn in your flesh. You know what I mean? Or, whatever it would be for, whatever audience it is.
Stephen Furtick or,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Hilarious.
And we really like to approach the game with like, no one's safe. You know what I mean? And I think, we probably have a little more guardrails around that, obviously, than Cards Against Humanity does. But they will come after every group of people there is, and I kind of appreciated that. You know what I mean? I feel like we took some of that cultural, influence and said, you know what, I think it can be good that someone can make this game their own, love them or hate them. This game will give you the opportunity to highlight them in whatever way, you think is funny.
Yeah. It kind of sets aside your, I guess, offensiveness, I'm offended. I don't know. Offendedness. There it is.
Yeah.
You have to set aside your offendedness, take any hot controversial topic and, set that aside and let it be funny for the night, kind of thing. And I think I appreciate that about Cards Christians Like as well, because, set aside whatever you think about XYZ mega pastor or mega church pastor or, controversial Christian topic, et cetera, like, you set that aside for the night. And tonight we're just making fun of all of it.
There can definitely be some toasty hot takes, where everyone is in the crosshairs. You know what I mean?
So that said, Kyle and I were talking before we had you on, and we were wondering, did you have a card that you thought about creating and you were like, you know what, that might be a little too dicey?
On the cutting floor.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I remember being in the process of writing this game where I like, time out, guys.
Am I going to get canceled for this?
No, I was not as much worried about being canceled as I said, this is funny. I'll admit this is funny. We're going to have to answer for this one day. You know what I mean? Like, that was my take, is like, are you comfortable, making this joke at the expense of, according to our beliefs, you standing before God one day and, him flipping through that bright blue box and said, tell me about this card. Tell me about printing, tens of thousands of copies of this card and putting it in homes everywhere. How do you feel about that? You want to talk to me about this? And so I would say this, the only thing that we really drew lines with were things that were sacred, because there's a very easy opportunity for you to make light of something, sacred. I think, I don't know. There were some where we were like, that's probably a little much, but we laughed about it, which we'll probably still have to answer for one day.
Better privately than publicly, though, right?
I think so, but you know what? Maybe to the Lord it doesn't matter.
Guess we'll find out.
Still working it out, right?
Stand by.
So, curious about if you're willing to talk revenues, because you've been doing this for a few years now. So you said, I forget the number, hundreds of thousands or north of $100,000 in your Kickstarter. So how is the game doing today? What's your kind of month over month or year over year revenue look like? And are you profitable? Like how is the business looking?
Yeah, it definitely ebbs and flows with the seasons. The good news is we are profitable. We've remained profitable from day one, thank God. So that's a good question. The first time we ordered the game, we ordered 12,000 copies of it. While it was being manufactured, we started pre-selling the game, and we ended up having to order 5,000 more copies of the game before the first 12,000 copies even got to America. So we, in the beginning, had to order order over order over order. In fact, we're sold out right now. So if you're wondering, does that affect our, bottom line or whatever, that does affect our bottom line. But I will say this, on a regular month, if it is I would say a low month, like our low bar is we don't want to make any less than $30,000. So we want to do over $1,000 a day in revenue. And I'll actually, I'll bring up my Shopify right here. And one of the things we are very transparent with our team. When our company wins, our team wins. And so every week, our team knows exactly how much money each of our different streams of revenue are bringing in. And we kind of like it that way because you don't have to shroud the success of the company from your employees or anything like that. So, I'll look at this month to date. So we're towards the end of February. We've done $33,700 this month. Let me jump into the analytics.
Is that Cards Christians Like alone, or is that your whole gambit of card
that
games?
would be all of our card games, but to kind of create some clarity, if I do, let's just say fourth quarter 2023. Now let me say this and let me say it again and let me echo this loudly. Fourth quarter 2023 or fourth quarter of any year is going to look grossly different from every other quarter in our industry because this is a perfect gift. So a lot of people will buy in the fourth quarter of the year when they won't necessarily buy in the first three quarters. So in Q4 of 2023, we made $275,000. And to kind of break that down as to how much money is each product making, our top selling product, I've got it broken down by units. And now let me also make this caveat. When someone buys it from our Shopify or someone buys it on Amazon, those don't get counted together in terms of units sold. So it will be like our number one selling product is definitely Cards Christians Like, but our number two selling product is also Cards Christians Like. So I can break that down. Our top selling product for this year or for Q4 of last year, Cards Christians Like, we sold 2,600 copies. Yeah, that's 2,600 copies. Our second highest selling game was Cards Christians Like on Amazon, where we sold 1,700 copies. And then our third would be, I don't know that counts because that's from a Kickstarter import. Yeah, our third most sold item is the expansion box to Cards Christians Like with 622 copies. So we have 4 games, and Cards Christians Like, the expansion box eclipses the sales of our other flagship games. Although I will say Holy Guacamole, which we just released this year, is really starting to pick up steam. So I think that there's a world where Holy Guacamole will take a true number 2 in the future.
Yeah, I think I just learned, and maybe 3.
Yeah,
I think I just learned of Holy Guacamole from an Instagram. Do you guys do Instagram reels? Is that where I saw it?
Yeah, we do reels.
Okay, I think that's where I learned about it, and then I realized, holy, they don't have just Cards Christians Like anymore, and I was like, man, I'm gonna have to buy some more of these games for my game nights with my Christian friends.
Holy Guacamole is a good one. It is a good game. We're very proud of it. So
I was also looking at the expansion packs. I enjoy the trash theology. I enjoy.
Yes. Well, you asked the question, you said, hey, are there any cards that you're like, we can't put this in the game? I would say we were very conservative whenever we wrote the initial game of Cards Christians Like. And then I had the idea that there were some cards that were kind of edgy that really still fit into Christian culture. And we put all of those cards in an expansion pack called Cards Christians Hide. And so it's like
at your own risk,
vaping in the parking lot, there's enough like different maybe alcohol references or stuff like that. So there's some really good, these are like things that maybe some Christians do but they hide. So
certain denominations ban, but others are like, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Like Jesus had nothing to say about that, so leave my vape alone. No, I'm joking.
Well, obviously you've referenced a few things here. Allow us to give you the opportunity to plug real quick. Like you've talked about Holy Guacamole, Cards Christians Like tell us where we can find everything and learn more.
Yeah, all of our Christian games are at cardschristianslike.com. And yeah, we do it. We have Cards Christians Like, Cast the First Stone. We have a little Cards Christians Like, which is 1/3 of the size, perfect for sneaking into North Korea if you're ever on a mission trip. Yeah. So we made that and someone's like, wow, were people really requesting small copies of the game? And we were like, no, actually, we just decided to print some. So we probably have maybe 800 more copies of it if anyone wants some. We have Holy Guacamole, which is really our newest, I would say, great selling product. And next month, maybe the month afterwards, we're going to finish with production of our game Discernment, which is kind of like Mad Gab or Incoherent, except Christian. And I feel like that game was really well written. So that one could pass up Holy Guacamole. We don't know. Jury's out.
We'll see. Awesome. I love it. I do want to ask you, because it sounds like, Cards Christians Like, I think was probably a faith tester for you. Like, I got an idea and I don't know what to do with it. I did it. And then now you've got all these other games. So did these other games kind of like, did you get the idea and immediately run with it? Or like the expansions, for example, like once you got Cards Christians Like out there, saw the success of it, now you're getting ideas for other games. How quickly then were you, taking those ideas and running with them?
Well, let me say this. Let me say something that's probably, so moving forward, it was much more strategic. It was, okay, if we're going to have a Kickstarter in June to release a new product by the holidays, when do we need to do this by? What is, here's our branding, our writing, our Kickstarter stuff, all the things. So it was much more strategic. But if I could answer something in the same vein of that question that's really more helpful, is a lot of times people have ideas. It's often, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably have an idea or you desire to build something. You desire to do something big. Here's the reality. There will always be reasons why you can't do something. There will always be reasons why it's impossible for you to launch this idea, why now's not the time, why you don't quite have what it takes, why you don't have the money, you don't have the manpower, you don't have the knowledge. There will always be reasons why you can't do what it is you want to do. And it's what you do with those reasons that will set you apart from everyone else. Because the reality is you can do something about it. You have not exhausted every measure that you could. I didn't come from a business, minded family. I didn't really come from money or anything like that. I literally just said, this is an idea. I feel like I have to pursue it. Let me do everything in my power to pursue this. Let me talk to people. Let me have conversations. Let me put the product in motion and start making it. Let me do market research and say, is anyone else doing this? Let me reach out to, or let me do internet research and see how have other people who have had similar ideas gone about this. So many people look at what it takes to actually pull off a successful idea, and they will become paralyzed. And I feel like in my journey of being an entrepreneur, one of the things that I have learned to do is just look at what I consider the impossible and say, how can I push through that? You know what I mean? How can I look for reasons why this is the most rational thing for me to pursue? And until you kind of have your own personal breakthrough, until you have that one moment where you try an idea and that first, money is deposited into your account and you feel like a fraud and all this stuff is, until you have that moment, maybe stop listening to the podcast and just do something. Take a step in the right direction, have a conversation, take a risk, be willing to lose money. Like, it was funny, like after we had the Kickstarter and we raised all that money, I had $16,000 on my credit card that I had amassed only starting my business. Like, I was always a financially responsible person, I paid my bills on time. I didn't spend more money than I made, but I felt like I needed to pursue this entrepreneurial journey, and I was willing to take the risk. I did not know how I was going to pay it off. I didn't know if anything was going to pan out, but I knew that if I just kept going, I would at least fail knowing I tried rather than fail because the conditions look hard. You know what I mean?
Preach, man. You're getting me all fired up. I think this is the reason we started this podcast, because, and I think of the quote, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Yes.
We get so wrapped up in, I don't know what to do. Well, what's step one? Like, maybe let's start there. Maybe Don't get wrapped up in like 10 steps from now because you might get overwhelmed. But ultimately, like, I love everything you said in there. Like, if you want to do this, then do this. Stop making excuses. You can make excuses all day, but it's not going to get you anywhere. And when you're sitting on your deathbed someday, are you going to look back and say, option one is, man, I wish I would have tried. Or will you say, man, I'm so glad that I tried. And whether it worked out or not, I can sit on this deathbed knowing I gave it all I had.
Right.
And I think, and that's why we created this show, so that people can have the inspiration and the tools to, stop. I'm a product of, man, I've read so many books. Just stop reading books and do something.
Get out there and do something, Steven. Start the website, send out, what's crazy? Whenever with my other company, remember I told you I had no money for marketing. I felt like maybe I should do memes. Well, guess what? I don't know how to do memes. I'm not funny. I don't know. I had all these reasons, and then I was like, I'm just going to make a stupid meme. You know what I mean? Insert explicit. I was like, I'm going to make a meme. And I made a meme, and it got like 50 likes. And I was like, okay, like I'm going to do it again. And, it got 100 likes. I kid you not. The 5th meme that I posted went absolutely viral. We gained 10,000 followers from it. I never would have gotten those 10,000 followers had I not just tried. Okay, try and be terrible. That's okay. Like, who are you trying to perform for? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I think you're right when you say, like, no one's going to sit on their deathbed and be like, man, I'm so glad I played it safe, bro. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm so glad I went to bed early and got 10 hours of sleep every night.
Yeah, I'm so glad that I lived in fear and called it wisdom. You know what I mean? I'm so
Exactly.
glad I just lied to myself.
In Daniel's case, though, he may be on his deathbed and be like, I'm going to have to answer for that card.
Here it comes.
I'm like,
Here
should have
it
put that
comes.
card in the I knew I should not have put that card in the game.
Any moment now, God's going to ask me this question.
I am terrified of this moment.
There is
I'm gonna
kind
walk
of an
ahead of-
element.
Lord, let me just start with I'm sorry. Okay, I have a lot to answer for right now. That one card, I should not have put that in there. That was a bad idea.
Let me just stop you right here. Yeah, right.
Love it.
There is kind of an element though of designed obsolescence to what we're doing, right? Like the whole idea is that people will listen and be inspired by people like yourself, and then go and do and not necessarily need to listen. But then at that point they can be guests if they so choose, because they've gone and done it, right? That's the whole idea.
It's so true. Let me just say this, and I know we're probably starting to get to the end of it. I feel like, oh my goodness, I could have so easily chosen to live a lesser life. And I'm going to call it a lesser life because I think what I'm doing now, I am living life to the absolute fullest. And guess what? I work so hard. Like, I do so much stuff. It's insane. But like, you know, what we do with Youth Pastor Co., which I know we didn't talk about, that is, okay, one of the things we haven't talked about with that, we just crossed $20,000 of monthly recurring revenue for this month. Last month it was 35,000. You know, that's our other business.
Amazing.
You know, that
we'll have to have another interview with you later to talk about just youthpastor.co.
Come on. I mean, because I think the subscription model is going somewhere. But bro, we took a huge risk last year and we put like every extra dollar we had into UI, UX and technology. And we're 40% up year over year. And we're like, this is incredible. And it's all because we were willing to make the upgrades and not, okay, I got a Wix site and I'm going to stay in my little Wix site forever. You know what I mean? Start with Wix, start with Squarespace, start wherever you need to, but don't be afraid to take the tools that got you to where you are and apply those same tools to where you need to be. Well, there's more risk now. We've got employees. We've got other people. These families are dependent on it. Guess what? They can get another job if your business goes down. You have more things to worry about than just, you know, is this completely safe? Because we're building a legacy here. You know what I mean? We're building something that our kids can stand on, that can really set them apart, even culturally, because we come from a family of, in our case, Christian entrepreneurs and pastors and leaders, and not just, hey, you know, we played it safe and we didn't rock the boat and we maxed out our, our Roth IRA every year and retired at 61. You know what I mean? And so, I don't know, I'm a proponent of, I want to push some people off the edge. Like, if you're on the edge of I want to start something, go do it. Call me in a week after you've done everything you know how to do. And you're not going to make money anytime soon. Go make the reel, go follow your TikTok career, whatever you think it is you need to start the podcast. Well, guess what? No one's listening. That's okay. Just keep interviewing people. It doesn't matter, you know, and just go for it, because man, you're not going to impress anyone sitting there, you know, and that person being yourself, you know what I mean? But you can go to bed proud of yourself if you're like, you know what? I freaking took a step. I was scared to death. I kind of probably overextended myself a little bit, but dang, I'm glad that I did.
There is an element, though. You had talked about earlier how you took a gap year, and on paper, you know, when you're younger, that just sounds like a nightmare. Like, it just makes it seem like you're purposeless or you're directionless, and you're trying to sell yourself, or you're trying to sell your future to other people who care about you and are asking about you. And you see other people that are like landing internships or doing that. And it doesn't get any easier when you get older. It gets worse. Mm-hmm. But just kind of the idea of embracing that hardship, even if it is a gap year or whatever it might be, and learn a lot
Right.
about yourself. You spun it into web design and writing. And those are the two things that you traffic in the most heavily now. And you may not have ever done it had it not been for that period of time.
I would have never guessed. I would not have actually guessed that that's the next step, because it had not been a part of my story at all previous to that moment. But I said, these two skills they're really valuable. And so, I think that there is something to say of pulling yourself back. You know what? Maybe not everyone is ready to spread their wings and fly. What I would say is, if you're not ready to spread your wings and fly, stop giving other people advice and stop saying, woe is me. You know what I mean? Be happy being normal. Be happy being in a learning season. Be happy and confident saying, hey, you know what? I've got an idea. I'm not ready yet. I just need a little bit more time. I'm going to put this date on the calendar. By 2 years from now, I'm going to pursue that technology business. I'm going to start this consulting firm. I'm going to go after the podcast. I'm going to buy the equipment. I'm going to do whatever. Put a date on the calendar. But there is no shame in that pullback season of saying, hey, I know that I see people around me who are making progress. And I know it's awful tempting to want to keep up with others are doing, but I'm okay being on my own journey. Because I feel like I had a late start. My entire 20s were spent in ministry. The last year of my 20s was spent overseas. I came back. I'm 30 years old. I'm unemployed. I really have, I have one rent house at the time to show for it, but I'm not making much money off of it, maybe $500 a month, which is honestly pretty good for a rent house. But anyways, it's embarrassing. There were times where it's like, bro, just go freaking get a job. You're just trying to start a little youth ministry website. You think you're going to make a career out of this? Go get a job, bro. Your people are like doing mergers and acquisitions. You're doing nothing right now. You're at a coffee shop putting this cappuccino on your credit card. But I was like, I really feel like this is it. I feel like I'm supposed to do this. And you know what? I went as far as I could without asking for any help. And 1 month before I had the idea for Cards Christians Like, I reached out to my mom. I showed her all of my numbers. My mom's kind of the money holder in our family. My dad's just like, I don't care. I showed her all of our numbers. I showed the current trajectory of our website. I showed her all the data. And I said, if I had $5,000, I think it could hold me over until we actually hit some level of profitability to where I can start paying off my credit card, making a salary for myself, all of this stuff. And she looked at the numbers. She looked at my hard work. She said, okay, I believe in you. I believe in you. She gave me $5,000. And 6 years later, I paid her and my dad back by, taking them on an all expense trip to London and Paris. We had dinner in the Eiffel Tower. We had a ton of fun together. And my wife came along. I wasn't going to give them the money. What do they want? They could just going to stick that in the bank. No, like, let's do something together as a family. That's what we really want to do here. So that one of you have to know your season. And I'm going to bring it back down to one last biblical thing, and then we can land the plane here if you want. But there's a parable. Jesus told a parable. Even if you're a believer, this parable makes sense. He told a parable about 3 men who were each entrusted with talents. One person had 1 talent. The other had 2 talents. The other had 5 talents. It was something like that. And, the master gave them their talents, went away for a year, came back. I want to say this like Matthew 25 or something like that. There's a few different renditions of this, but he comes back. The master looks at the guy with 5 talents. He produced 5 more talents. And, the master was full of celebration and said, here's 5 more for your hard work, go and celebrate. The guy with 2 talents comes. He's like, hey, I knew you were a hard master, reaping where you hadn't sown. I've given you 2 more talents. He doubled his investment. He's like, oh, fantastic. He's like, you're crushing it. Keep going. He comes to the guy with 1 talent. The guy with the 1 talent says this. He's like, hey, I knew you were a harsh man, all this stuff. I buried your talent. I just buried it. I protected it. I protected this. That's wisdom, right? I could have lost it, but I protected this talent. Here, I'm giving you back what you gave me. And he said, you wicked and, hear me out, lazy. You wicked and lazy servant. You could have at least deposited this and made interest. The issue is I get the guy with the 1 talent. Because if he's looking at all the other guys that he graduated with, he's like, I have half the amount of talents as that guy. I have 1/5 the amount of talents as that guy. I'm looking around and no one is less qualified to make do with what they have than me. I have the least out of all of us. I understand that. That's got to be crippling. You know what I mean? He's looking around and he's got nothing compared to the other guys. Oh, this guy's attractive. This guy comes from money. This guy's got charisma. This guy's got hustle and drive. This guy's got whatever. He's looking at all the reasons why he can't do it. And the master said, why didn't you just use what was in your hands? I gave you 1 talent. If you would have maxed out and stewarded that 1 talent, you could have double what you have now. Instead, you have nothing. And I think there's some of us out there who maybe we feel like we're a 1 talent business owner. And you know what? You might be. That's okay. You're not a Steve Jobs. That's not even 1 in a million. That's once in a lifetime. You know what I mean? And that's okay because you're not supposed to be that, Steve Jobs. But if you take your 1 talent and stop looking at, the hardware store down the street or the technology company or the payment processor or whatever it is, and you take your 1 talent and you take care of it, it'll grow. And it might grow slow, but slow growth over a few decades is a lot. So,
yeah. And for anyone confused, the talent was a measure of money back in the day, but it's aptly confused now for what we're talking about here and putting our talents to good use. And for anybody who was racing to follow along with what Daniel was talking about, that is the book of Matthew, chapter 25, and that's verses 14 through 30, just in case anyone's curious.
Bro, you crushed that, Kyle. And you're right, it was money. It was totally money.
Applies all the same.
Yeah.
Well, great. Hey, man, we got one more question for you. This will be our, what do we call it?
It's our witness business
between like listener question, witness business advice, whatever. But today it's really just a fun question for you. So this will be that, and then we'll wrap up. Kyle, you want to take today's?
Yeah, so we have people write in questions who are listening, and the question that we got just was, in light of being a game creator, what is your favorite game to play that isn't your own?
Man, that's a great question. Here's the funny thing. Not much of a gamer.
Really?
That's
or maybe a game growing up.
That is not the answer people wanted to hear. Like, I own a PlayStation, but I don't play it. I'm terrible. I'm that guy on Call of Duty where it's like his gun is in the air and he's just twisting around, and I'm like, why am I freaking looking at shooting these clouds right now? I tell you what game I enjoyed. Actually, I think the creators of Cards Against Humanity did this. It is it's like a secret Hitler. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've played that.
Yeah, and I want to say it was made by the guys from Cards Against Humanity. But I like games like that where you kind of got to figure something out.
It's kind of like Mafia.
Yeah, Mafia style games. I'm not really into the cheap humor, exploding kittens, strategy, blah, 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 blah. I kind of like the slow play. Not too slow, bro. I'm not trying to trade you 2 woods for a steel. You know what I mean?
Oh, come on.
I'm not
anti-settlers take.
First of all, steel is not in the game, but
yeah, well, exactly, okay. Bro. It's got to play like one time. I would play with you guys. I'd play with you guys. And I might would win. I'm not going to say I would lose because I could win, but I don't know that it's going to be on my list of games to play.
I don't know about that. About winning.
Meet me online.
Call that a challenge.
Meet me in the Catan.
Catan app.
Yeah.
Look, I'm gonna camp on ore, and I'm not gonna give you any of it. That's what's gonna happen.
Oh boy. Well, Daniel, man, this was all good. I hate to wrap up because it's all great information. I have so many more questions I'd love to ask, but given that we're over an hour now, we'll wrap it up. Maybe we'll have to book you for another interview just to ask some more questions, talk about youthpastor.co, talk about everything else you've done and you have going on in the future. But for now, Daniel, thanks so much. It's been a pleasure.
We appreciate
Thank you guys.